I love this trade. That was what I really kind of started off saying is I love this trade for a multitude of reasons. I talked about some next gen stats, how Claypool is a top 5 receiver for running go routes. We know Justin Fields' love for throwing the deep ball. And I'm actually going to take something that I haven't added yet, but I want to kind of transition this then back to you and let you give your thoughts on the trade too, my friend. We talked about Faz scores quite a bit here at Bears on Tap during the draft special, right? Quentin is the numbers guru and genius behind this podcast. That man can spit out numbers better than just about anybody I know. Like he makes his articles are my like stats porn because I'm a stat nut and like Quentin's stuff is next level. Quentin brought up Faz scores quite a bit during the draft because all of Ryan Poles' draft picks, Joey, were players that were highly athletic. That's what the Faz scores indicate. It's athleticism, right? It's how far they jump, how fast they run, how big they are, etc. There was a statistic out there that Chase Claypool for Faz scores since 1987 had like the 5th best Faz score ever out of like almost 3,000 receivers that were graded. That's insanity. Like people, I think people forget, right? Because he's only had like 870 yards as his top his rookie year. He's been about that the last 2 years. He was competing for a lot of targets in Pittsburgh and in a fairly anemic Pittsburgh offense. Let's just call it what it was the last 2 years, except they got really hot in 2020 and then they pissed it away. But nonetheless,
they had a quarterback that couldn't even throw though on his way out the door, you know?
Exactly. They brought in a freak athlete for Justin Fields, which A, fits what Ryan Poles likes to do, and we've seen already after one off season. But B, you give him a deep threat. You know how cool it's going to be seeing Justin Fields throw a ball 50 yards downfield and Chase Claypool's big 6'4" ass goes up and goes to get it? Oh,
that Joey. Leaping ability, man. That leaping ability combined with the speed. I know. I don't want to get like over the top, but it's like this is the day to get over the top. Everybody's been begging for weapons, begging, screaming. You didn't do enough to help Fields. You don't believe in Fields. Blah blah blah. It's clear as day right now that they believe in Fields, and especially because of what we've seen over the last few weeks. You get this guy. I understand maybe it's a little bit of an overpay technically for what like. Because he was a second-round pick, right? He was a second-round pick. Chase Claypool was. And I actually wanted the Bears to draft him in that draft. I wanted the Bears to draft him. And they went with Kmet. Okay, I'm fine with that. I like Notre Dame. So that's why, like, I like Iowa. I'm that weirdo. We've talked about this. I like Iowa. I like Notre Dame. I like Wisconsin. I'm just all over the place. Shout out to B-Down, by the way, because he's a huge Notre Dame guy.
I was going to say, I cannot wait to hear the absolute just – as Beaton would put it in his own words, just absolute just knob slobbing that he's about to do that Chase Claypool's a Chicago Bear now. Like, I'm actually excited to listen to this week's preview show if I'm unable to be on it because Beaton's going to lose it. But anyway, continue, my friend.
You know what, man? Like, absolutely. Claypool, like, this is a guy that I don't think has reached his full potential. And you can unlock him with a real quarterback. Like you said. Big Ben was like he was on his way out the door. He couldn't really throw. He was basically doing like the Peyton Manning when he was on his way out the door, just like short arm and stuff. Everything's short. Everything's Deontay Johnson, 5 yards from the scrimmage. Like, there was no deep ball there. And now you got a guy like Claypool who can run those end arounds and those sweeps way better than Equanimous St. Brown, another Notre Dame guy, then Dante Pettis, who we've already seen them have some success with those plays, those end arounds and those sweeps. You throw a guy out there like Chase Claypool, who not only is just used for that as like a gadget player, but can take the top off a defense. Yeah. Like Velus Jones, nobody's trusting him to make a catch right now. Like his hands are awful. He's almost dropping plays that are like screens, like screen passes. It's going off his hands and then he catches it. You catch that right away, you're gone. Like with his speed, Claypool, that's game over, man. If they can kind of get him in space and utilize that, I mean, the sky really is the limit. I hate to be like, I don't want to go too far and say that he's a number one wide receiver, but if you have him and Mooney together, that's a pretty damn good combo. Like now all of a sudden we went from the Bears have zero weapons to what else happens with the rest of this depth, like going down the list. Like you kind of feel pretty good about what's around Fields right now, at least from the weapon standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you a new kind of feeling of confidence. And one of the interesting things too, Scott Crawford here in the comments. Also, thank you to everybody that's joining us in the comments. We certainly appreciate it. He says Claypool is the biggest and fastest wide receiver I can remember in a Bears uniform. I would make the argument he's probably the biggest and fastest we've seen since like Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey. But it's been a decade since those guys were
Right.
Chicago Bears. Like it's been
And
a
what was
really
their
fucking
speed
long
though?
time.
Like what I don't remember. Like I'm having a hard time. Like I don't think Jeffrey was as fast. Was he like a
No,
burner?
I think Claypool raw speed is probably faster. Not by a
Mhm.
terrible amount. I think Jeffrey still ran in the 4.5s, but like 4.4 speed at 6'4 is insanity,
Crazy.
literal insanity. It's
You were
nuts. And
talking about those
actually,
scores. Like the guys with the combine stuff. Like one of the guys that
Mhm.
came as like a comparison to him was Megatron, dude. Like he's in that like elite tier of like wide
don't they
receivers
call
or
him
like
Mapletron? Isn't that a thing?
I think
Because
that
he's
was, yeah.
Canadian.
I think that is,
Mapletron.
yeah. That's
God,
right.
I can't wait to use Mapletron on a podcast. I thought it was only going to be Hawks that I could talk about Canadians on, but we got a Canadian on the Bears now. And it's all cool and stuff. But Joey, just really quick, I want to share a couple of tweets with you here because they kind of wrap into a couple of the points that you brought up in your discussion as well. And I think one that brings up something else that we can elaborate on. For those that don't know him, I absolutely love him. I hope we could get him on as a guest on Bears on Tap. But Ill Will on Twitter, he's at 79 Ill Will. Absolutely hysterical in Bears Twitter. He said today, and I kind of agree with this because I said this like Bears, a lot of Bears. I wanted the Bears to take Claypool in 2020. I think a lot of Bears fans did. And he said here, he goes, y'all wanted the Bears to draft Claypool in the second round 2 years ago. Now y'all mad they traded a second for him. He goes, please go have some sex. Which I thought the ending was the best part. But here's another good one too. This is from Albert Breer, and this was at about 3:30 this afternoon. He says the Bears see new wide receiver Chase Claypool growing into a role like the one Alan Lazard played for ex-Packers passing game coordinator Luke Getsy in Green Bay. Inside-outside flexibility, can beat press from both spots, tenacious run blocker, and a real deep threat. That's also another thing to keep in mind that I didn't even think about, Joey, is the fact that look at every single receiver that Poles signed this offseason. What do they all
Blocking.
do well? They're all great run blockers. All of them. You add
Equanimous
Claypool
is
in,
like maybe the best in the league, like one of the
yeah.
best. And you add in this guy, yeah, it's gonna be nice.
And that's going to help the run game. And honestly, again, I know a lot of people are pissed that the defense is probably going to suck. I was talking to my cousin. He lives down in Atlanta. He's a diehard Bears fan. And he's like, our front seven's so bad. It's up for the worst in the league. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But like, dude, this whole season's about the Bears offense. If the Bears offense puts up 31 every game and they lose like 42-31, I don't give a rat's ass because that's showing Justin Fields making progress, right? Like that's what they need to happen. And bringing in a guy like this absolutely does that. But Joey, I cannot wait to see what they do with him. I think that's the big kind of question mark, I guess, for lack of a better term, of how they're going to use him. Albert Breer's tweet kind of gives some of that insight. Like he's absolutely a guy you could move around, right?